Fentanyl, a deadly illegal drug tearing through American cities, has become one of the FBI's biggest national threats. Behind it all, a single name echoes through the shadows: Marco Alvarez, a ruthless Mexican drug lord known only as El Fantasma, the Ghost. First tracked in 2015 by an undercover FBI agent, the mission ended in blood. The agent was exposed and killed. Marco vanished. For 10 years, there was nothing. Not a sighting. Not a trace. Until now. The FBI makes a shocking discovery. Marco's deaf mother is living quietly in a small village inside the United States. And every year, he returns to see her, in disguise. But instead of sending in their best field agent, the FBI takes an insane gamble. They recruit a shy, untrained waitress named Anna, the only person his mother trusts, to bring down a man wanted around the world. This is the story of how a waitress brought down a drug cartel boss. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe, like, and drop your location in the comments. We love seeing where you're watching from. There was once a man known only by his nickname, El Fantasma, which means the Ghost. His real name was Marco Alvarez, and he was one of the most feared drug lords in all of Mexico. No one knew where he lived. No one saw him in public. Most people never even heard his voice. But still, his name brought fear. His cartel didn't just move drugs, they moved death. Marco was smart, careful, and always one step ahead of the law. The only time someone got close to him, they ended up dead. He controlled the streets without ever walking on them. His orders were given in silence. His enemies disappeared. People said you couldn't catch what you couldn't see. That's why they called him the Ghost. And for 10 long years, Marco Alvarez stayed hidden while the world around him paid the price for the poison he pushed. Marco's drug of choice was not marijuana or cocaine. It was something far more dangerous: fentanyl. This drug was stronger than heroin and could kill with just a tiny amount. Marco's cartel became one of the largest suppliers of fentanyl in the world. His team used fake businesses, secret tunnels, and corrupt officials to ship the drug across the border from Mexico into the United States. Sometimes it came hidden in candy boxes, other times inside gas tanks. The drugs would arrive in cities and towns, where dealers sold them as painkillers, sleep aids, or party pills. Many people didn't even know what they were taking until it was too late. One pill could stop a heart. People collapsed in schools, parks, and even at home. Emergency rooms were flooded. Police were overwhelmed. While families cried, Marco got richer. And he didn't lose sleep over any of it. Back in 2015, the FBI believed they finally had a way to stop him. They sent in a brave undercover agent named Luis Navarro. Luis was fluent in Spanish and had grown up in California near the border. He looked the part, acted the part, and for a time, the cartel believed he was just another drug buyer from Colombia. Luis spent months gaining their trust. He passed their tests, met their middlemen, and even got invited to high-level meetings. He wore hidden wires. He used secret hand signals to send messages to the FBI. It was risky, but he was getting close. His biggest goal was to meet Marco in person and collect real evidence of his voice and face. One day, he got that chance. He shook Marco's hand during a private meeting in Guadalajara. But before Luis could report back with what he saw, he was caught. What happened next shocked the FBI and changed the way they handled cartel investigations. Agent Luis Navarro was found dead just 2 days after meeting Marco. His body had signs of torture, and the message was clear: no one gets close to El Fantasma and lives. The FBI was crushed. Luis was one of their best. His death didn't just end an investigation. It ended the trust of many agents who feared ending up like him. All the work, all the planning, all the progress vanished in one night. Marco Alvarez disappeared. The case was shut down. And just like that, the Ghost became untouchable once again. No one wanted to go near his name. Inside FBI offices, you could hear whispers: Don't end up like Navarro. His death became a warning sign for anyone who even thought about tracking Marco again. Even though the FBI gave up the chase, Marco didn't slow down. In fact, he became even harder to find. He stopped using phones and emails. He no longer met people face to face. He hired couriers who couldn't speak and used maps instead of written messages. His cartel became like a maze. No start, no end, just endless turns. The few people who had seen him said he wore disguises. One day he was a street cleaner, another day a delivery man. He had fake passports from at least 5 countries. He was never in one place for long. He avoided cameras, airports, and crowds. He traveled by foot, boat, and underground tunnels. There were no pictures, no recordings, no fingerprints. All that remained was his poison, fentanyl, and the trail of pain it left behind. Every overdose in the US was like another shadow on Marco's invisible shoulders. The death of Agent Navarro also caused fear inside law enforcement agencies. Officers no longer wanted to take assignments involving Marco. Prosecutors avoided cases linked to his cartel. Politicians stayed silent. It was as if the entire country had accepted the fact that Marco Alvarez could not be caught. Files were moved to cold storage. His name disappeared from watch lists. There were no new updates, no new plans. The ghost had won. And while the world looked the other way, Marco's cartel kept growing. They started working with other transnational criminal organizations, called TCOs, in Colombia, China, and even Africa. These groups shared resources, moved money across oceans, and helped each other stay hidden. Marco had created an empire, and he didn't even need to show his face. He had become the world's most wanted man, without a single photo to prove he was alive. But the world was bleeding. By 2020, fentanyl had become the #1 cause of overdose deaths in the United States. Over 70,000 people died in just 1 year. Parents lost children. Babies were born addicted. Cities ran out of body bags. Ambulance workers carried special medicine just to stop overdoses. Small towns were hit the hardest. These were not just drug addicts. They were students, athletes, teachers, even doctors. Every state had stories of young people dying after taking one single pill. Lawmakers cried on TV. Protests began outside police stations. "Do something," the signs said. The FBI, DEA, and Homeland Security were under pressure. The people wanted answers. But the agencies had none. The ghost was still out there, and no one knew how to catch him. That's when something changed. In early 2024, a group of analysts began going through cold cases related to TCOs. These were old files that had been closed for years. Their goal was to find missed patterns, tiny clues that had been overlooked. One name kept showing up, Marco Alvarez. But what surprised the team was not the name, it was the dates. All of Marco's major drug shipments had happened in the same months, year after year. That couldn't be an accident. It looked like a routine. Something predictable. The team called this pattern the silent calendar. They also noticed a strange code that appeared in some reports, Ruta del Silencio, or the silent route. This wasn't a common term. It had to mean something. And if they could figure out what it meant, maybe they could find a way back into the case. The more they looked, the more they found. The silent route ran through parts of Texas, Arizona, and New Mexico. The drug shipments were always made during quiet times of year, avoiding holidays and big events. That's when Agent Dominic Graves, a veteran in drug investigations, stepped in. He sat with the analysts and stared at the maps for hours. If he's moving that much weight this quietly, he said, someone's helping him. Someone close. Maybe even family. It was a theory no one had explored before. What if Marco had someone in the US helping him stay hidden? What if the ghost had a secret, and that secret was flesh and blood? Graves asked his team to pull all family records tied to Marco Alvarez, including birth certificates, travel visas, and immigration history. After weeks of digging, one name stood out. It was a woman older, possibly in her 70s, with a connection to Marco's childhood town in Mexico. Her records were strange. She had entered the US under one name but changed it soon after. She had no job, no car, and no online presence. Yet, her rent was always paid. Her food deliveries were cash only. She had no friends or photos. But every year, around the same time Marco's drug shipments moved, she went off the grid for several weeks. Then came back like nothing happened. That was the first real clue. A woman who vanished, just like her son. Agent Graves brought the file to his boss. "We might have something," he said. "A living connection. And if we're right, she might be the key to catching the ghost." The FBI knew this would be their only chance. If they were wrong, the trail would go cold again. But if they were right, they could finally bring justice to the families of tens of thousands of overdose victims. Graves, along with a small hand-picked team, prepared for what could be the most important operation in modern FBI history. They didn't name it after drugs or death. They named it after the only thing Marco Alvarez had ever left behind, a faint, silent trail. The operation was called Silent Echo. Its goal was simple, but not easy. Locate Marco Alvarez. Find his weakness. Break through the silence that had protected him for over a decade. The lead was small, but the FBI knew they had to act fast. A woman, believed to be Marco Alvarez's mother, had been living quietly in the United States under a false identity. This woman had no job history, no bank account, and no public records after her arrival. Still, she paid her bills on time, kept to herself, and didn't cause any trouble. She lived in a quiet desert town in New Mexico, far from the cities. The FBI couldn't believe it. Could the mother of one of the world's most dangerous drug lords really be living like this, in a dusty little town with only one traffic light? They weren't sure yet. But the strange pattern in her travel history, her background matching Marco's family, and her yearly disappearances during cartel activity made her their best lead in over a decade. It was time to investigate, and no mistake could be made. Special Agent Dominic Graves had been working for the FBI for almost 20 years. He had led some of the biggest drug cases in the country. He didn't scare easily, but even he felt the weight of this mission. Alongside him was Agent Rachel Lynn, a younger but sharp surveillance expert who was known for noticing small details others missed. Together, they formed a strong team, experienced, focused, and patient. As part of Operation Silent Echo, they were sent to New Mexico to quietly observe the woman. Their orders were simple: gather information, confirm her identity, and most importantly, don't alert anyone. The entire town was being watched from a distance. FBI drones were flying at night, cameras were placed on nearby rooftops, and agents were parked in unmarked cars pretending to be tourists or road repair workers. Everyone was on edge, but Dominic and Rachel were in control. They quickly found the woman's home. It was on a narrow street just past the edge of town. The house was small, with faded white paint and an old wooden fence. There was no satellite dish, no security system, and no sign of modern technology. Inside, the furniture was simple: one couch, one table, and a few old chairs. Her name on record was Maria Gutierrez, but they already believed that wasn't real. She didn't use phones or email. No one ever came to visit her, and she didn't attend any local events. It didn't add up. Why would the mother of a billionaire drug lord live like this? She had no guards, no cameras, and nothing that showed fear. Either she was hiding very well, or she truly believed she was untouchable. Rachel noted that the house had been paid off in cash 5 years ago. That fact alone raised more red flags. To learn more, Dominic and Rachel began canvassing the neighborhood. They went door to door, asking questions in a friendly way. They pretended to be writing a report about small-town life for a government study. Most people welcomed them and shared stories. That's how they met Mr. Charles Henley, an older man who lived 2 doors down from the woman's house. He wore large glasses and spoke slowly, but his mind was sharp. He told them, "That lady keeps to herself. Never talks. Just nods. Doesn't hear a word you say." He leaned closer and whispered, "She's deaf, you know. Always has been." Charles also remembered seeing a few strange packages left on her porch over the years. They never had labels, he said. No return address. And once, I swear I saw someone pick one up just a minute after it was dropped off. Like they were waiting. Another neighbor, Marta Rivera, knew the woman a little better. She worked part-time at the local store and sometimes helped her carry groceries. Marta said, "She's quiet but polite. Always wears the same brown sweater. Brings her own bag. She signs a lot with her hands." When Rachel asked how often the woman left town, Marta said something important. "She disappears every year for a few weeks. Just gone. No car in the driveway, no lights. Then, like magic, she's back. No one knows where she goes." That information matched exactly with the FBI's records on Marco's cartel movements. Every year, during the same period, large fentanyl shipments crossed the border. Now, they believed Marco came to see his mother during that time. And if that was true, then she wasn't just a quiet old woman. She was part of the ghost's secret life. Rachel began going over satellite images from the past 5 years. In 4 of them, a black SUV with covered plates was seen pulling into the woman's driveway around the same week each year. The SUV stayed for 2 to 3 days and then left without a trace. The timing was never exactly the same, but always close enough to match major cartel movements. Dominic looked at the photos and whispered, "That's him. That has to be Marco. He wouldn't trust anyone else." Still, they needed more proof. The next step was to watch the woman more closely, without being seen. Rachel set up a surveillance camera in a bird feeder across the street. It had a clear view of her front door and porch. They wanted to know everything: what time she left the house, who she spoke to, what she carried, and if she received any unusual visitors. That's when something odd happened. Each morning, the woman left her house around 9 a.m. and walked 20 minutes to a coffee shop on the edge of town. It wasn't a fancy place, just a small shop with 3 tables and an old jukebox. But what caught the agent's attention was that she passed 3 other coffee shops along the way. Why would a woman her age walk that far, especially when she could go somewhere closer? Rachel thought it was a pattern. Dominic thought it was a sign. Maybe she wasn't going for the coffee at all. Maybe she was meeting someone. They began watching the shop through another hidden camera. The woman always sat at the same table. She didn't talk to anyone, except for one waitress, a young woman who greeted her with a smile and spoke using sign language. That single detail made both agents lean forward in their chairs. The agents ran the waitress's name through local records. They found out she was Mexican-American, born in Texas, and had worked at the coffee shop for over 3 years. Her name was not important yet, but what mattered was the connection. She was the only person the woman communicated with. She didn't seem to know who the woman really was, just treated her like a regular customer. But the fact that this deaf woman chose this coffee shop, this waitress, and this route told the agents everything they needed to know. This wasn't random. This was controlled. Marco's mother didn't leave things to chance. If she trusted the waitress, there was a reason. And if Marco trusted his mother, then this waitress could be the only outsider close enough to the cartel without even knowing it. Dominic and Rachel marked this moment in the case timeline. It was the beginning of their way in. Back at the motel, Dominic spread out the surveillance photos on the table. There was the woman entering the shop, the waitress handing her coffee, the short conversations in sign language. Rachel sat beside him, typing her notes into a secure laptop. "It's like clockwork," she said. "Same route. Same time. No changes." Dominic nodded. And people like Marco don't allow randomness. This is part of something bigger. They knew they couldn't approach the woman directly. If she got scared and warned Marco, everything would be ruined. But if they could understand her habits, her daily patterns, and her trust in the waitress, they might have a chance to get closer without being seen. It was like solving a puzzle with no picture on the box. But every piece mattered. Every detail added up. The woman in the house was more than a mother. She was a door. And the agents were ready to knock. Her name was Anna Martinez, and to most people in the small town of Arroyo Vista, she was just the friendly girl who worked mornings at the corner coffee shop. She wore her hair in a messy ponytail, loved colorful earrings, and always greeted customers with a cheerful smile. But what most people didn't know about Anna was that she could speak 2 languages, and one of them didn't need sound. Anna was fluent in American Sign Language, ASL. She wasn't deaf, but signing came as naturally to her as talking. Every time the older woman, known to the town as Senora Maria, came in for coffee, Anna welcomed her with warm hands and kind eyes. She didn't know who the woman really was. To her, she was just a lonely old lady who liked to chat. But for the FBI, Anna was quickly becoming something much more important. Anna's life had never been easy. She was born in Texas, but moved around a lot as a child. Her mother struggled with addiction, and her father was never in the picture. By the age of 6, Anna was placed in foster care, bouncing from one home to another. Some families were nice, others were not. Through it all, she held on to one special thing: her love for learning languages. She loved how words could change, how signs could speak without a voice. When she was 13, she had a foster cousin named Diego who was born deaf. Most people ignored him or talked around him, but Anna didn't. She wanted to talk with him. So she asked her foster parents to buy her a sign language book, and she practiced every day until she could understand him. For the first time, Diego smiled. That memory stayed with her forever. After leaving the foster system at 18, Anna worked a lot of small jobs: babysitting, waitressing, helping at local fairs. She didn't have money for college, but she never stopped learning. She saved up to take ASL classes at the community center, volunteered with kids who had hearing loss, and even joined an online sign language group. When she moved to Arroyo Vista for a fresh start, she was just looking for peace and quiet. She never imagined her ability to sign would lead her into something far more dangerous. At the time, she thought it was just a lucky coincidence when an older woman started coming into the cafe every week. The woman was quiet and hard to read, but when Anna used sign language to greet her, the woman's face lit up. That small moment of connection started a routine that would change everything. The FBI agents watching Senora Alvarez's movements from across the street were quick to notice something unusual. The older woman barely reacted to anyone. She never waved at neighbors, never greeted the cashier at the grocery store, and never showed emotion in public. Except for one place, the coffee shop. And more importantly, one person, Anna Martinez. Hidden cameras captured it clearly. As soon as Anna appeared behind the counter, the woman's posture changed. Her face softened. She even smiled, something they had not seen her do once in any other setting. Rachel Lynn took screenshots and wrote in her report, "Subject displays visible signs of trust and comfort only in the presence of cafe employee Anna Martinez." This wasn't just friendly behavior. It was rare emotional expression from a woman who otherwise lived like a locked door. Anna had unknowingly found the key. Inside the coffee shop, Anna had no idea she was being watched. To her, Senora Maria was just another regular who liked the same seat, the same coffee, and the same small talk in sign language. They talked about birds, plants, and the weather. Sometimes, Senora Maria would bring in old photos and point to them proudly. Anna thought she must have had a big family once, maybe back in Mexico. She never asked too many questions, and she never noticed the way the woman paused before answering some signs. Anna just thought she was being careful or slow because of age. She had no clue that this sweet old lady was the mother of the most wanted drug lord in the Western Hemisphere. And she certainly didn't know that her kind heart and helpful hands were now the center of a top-secret FBI investigation. Rachel and Dominic began studying Anna's movements, habits, and expressions. They watched hours of footage, Anna handing over cups of coffee, gently touching the woman's arm while laughing at a shared joke in sign, waving goodbye with both hands. Rachel noticed that the woman always sat close to the counter when Anna worked but sat near the window when other staff were there. The FBI ran employment records on Anna and found a strange pattern. The woman's yearly disappearances, believed to be her time with Marco, only happened during months Anna was scheduled to work. It was as if Senora Alvarez didn't trust anyone else to say goodbye before leaving town. Dominic circled that detail in red. "She doesn't speak to anyone else," he said. "This girl isn't just a barista to her. She's the only outsider allowed in." That made Anna the most valuable asset they had without her even knowing it. By the end of the week, the team had gathered enough information to build a profile on Anna. She had no criminal record, no family ties to the cartel, and no suspicious travel. She had never been to Mexico, didn't own a passport, and didn't even own a car. She walked or biked everywhere. She donated to animal shelters, sent money to her old foster family for holidays, and volunteered twice a month at the senior center. She was as clean as they came. Rachel leaned back in her chair and said what they were all thinking: "We recruit her." Dominic didn't answer right away. He stared at the surveillance screen where Anna was laughing with a customer. He remembered Luis Navarro, the last person who got close to Marco. He remembered the funeral, the folded flag, the wife holding their daughter. "She's not an agent," Dominic said. "She doesn't know what this world is." Rachel understood his fear, but she also knew they were out of options. "If we don't try, we stay blind," she said. "She's the only one he doesn't hide from. That means something." Dominic sighed. The last thing he wanted was to put an innocent person in danger, but this wasn't a normal case. Marco Alvarez had been untouchable for a decade, and this waitress, this quiet, kind girl, might be the only open door they would ever get. Rachel suggested a plan. They wouldn't tell Anna everything at once. Instead, they'd start slowly, learn what she knew, explain small parts of the truth, and build trust the same way she had unknowingly built trust with Senora Alvarez. They would keep her safe, watch every step, and never leave her alone. But first, they had to approach her. Carefully, thoughtfully, and without scaring her away. It began with a simple visit. Anna Martinez had just finished her morning shift at the coffee shop when two strangers approached her as she locked the door. They looked normal, maybe in their 30s or 40s. The woman wore glasses and had a soft voice. The man stood tall and calm, holding a folder under his arm. They introduced themselves as researchers from a small government project about communication in small towns. Their names were Rachel and Dominic. They said they had heard about her skills in sign language and wanted to talk about her experience working with the deaf community. At first, Anna was surprised but not alarmed. She had helped with surveys before and always liked talking about ASL. When they asked if she'd be open to a short interview at a local diner later that week, she nodded. "Sure," she said, "as long as it's not one of those scam jobs." The meeting took place 2 days later. Anna wore her favorite yellow sweater and sat across from Rachel and Dominic in a quiet corner booth. Rachel asked about how she learned sign language, what kind of conversations she had with customers, and how often she used it outside of work. Anna answered honestly. She talked about her cousin Diego, her classes, and how using sign had become part of who she was. But after a while, she started to feel something wasn't quite right. These people weren't taking notes. They weren't even recording her answers. They just kept watching her very closely, especially when she talked about the old woman who came in for coffee each morning. Anna narrowed her eyes and leaned forward. "Is this really about a research study?" she asked. Rachel and Dominic paused. Dominic gave a small smile. "Not exactly," he said, "but we promise we'll explain everything soon." While Anna went home that night wondering what was really going on, the FBI went to work behind the scenes. Rachel and Dominic handed her name over to the cyber team and asked for a deep background check. They looked through her school records, job history, online activity, and any possible links to criminal groups. The results came back clean. No red flags. No missing years. No sudden money transfers or secret friends. Anna was exactly who she said she was. Just a small-town waitress with a big heart and a rare skill. But what caught their attention most was a detail from her personal file. Her cousin Diego had died 3 years earlier from a fentanyl overdose. It had been a cheap pill from the street, something passed around at a party. Anna hadn't spoken much about it, but the pain was still there. The team realized this could be the emotional reason she might say yes. At the next meeting, Rachel and Dominic didn't pretend anymore. They told Anna they were with the FBI and that she was not in trouble. Her eyes went wide. She looked ready to run. But Rachel quickly added, "We're not here to scare you. We need your help." Anna didn't speak for a full minute. She had never even seen the inside of a police station before. "What does the FBI want with me?" she asked, almost whispering. Dominic opened the folder he had been carrying since the first day. Inside was a printed photo of Senora Maria sitting at the coffee shop table. "This woman isn't just anyone," he said gently. "She's the mother of a man named Marco Alvarez. He's a cartel boss responsible for thousands of deaths. We believe he's coming to see her soon, and you're the only one she trusts." Anna's hand trembled as she looked down at the photo. Her first reaction was shock, then confusion, then fear. Anna backed away from the table, shaking her head. No way. I just talked to her. I didn't do anything wrong." Rachel nodded calmly. "We know you didn't. That's why we came to you. You're the only person who gets close to her without raising alarms." Anna sat down again, slowly, as if the weight of the truth had pulled her back into the seat. Dominic leaned in. "3 years ago," he said carefully, "you lost someone to fentanyl. That same drug is what this man sells. He's the reason for so many of these deaths. You could help us stop him." Anna didn't say anything. She just stared at the table. Finally, she whispered, "Are you asking me to be a spy?" Rachel replied, "We're asking you to do what you've already been doing. But this time, it might save lives." That night, Anna didn't sleep. She lay awake thinking about her cousin Diego, the way he used to laugh when she signed the wrong word, and how her foster parents had cried at his funeral. She thought about Senora Maria, how kind her eyes seemed, how gentle her hands were, and how none of it made sense now. Was she pretending the whole time? Did she know her son was a killer? Anna didn't know what to believe. But one thing was clear: if Marco Alvarez really was the monster they said he was, and if he really came to see his mother soon, then Anna would be the one person standing close enough to do something about it. The next morning, she called Rachel's burner phone and said only 3 words, "I'll do it." That call marked the beginning of a new life, a secret one, full of risks, but driven by something real. The FBI wasted no time. Within days, Anna began a private training program. It was short but intense. She didn't train at a regular FBI building, but at a small private house owned by the agency. Her sessions were quiet, and everything was disguised. She learned how to use micro-surveillance devices, including tiny recorders hidden in buttons and watches. She was taught emotional control techniques, like how to breathe slowly and act calm even when nervous. Rachel gave her lessons on reading lips in Spanish, even though Anna didn't speak it fluently. More importantly, she practiced ASL recon techniques, how to watch for unusual signs in body language, fake signing habits, or coded gestures. It was hard at first. Anna had never done anything like this. But she focused, asked questions, and never gave up. She wasn't becoming an agent. She was becoming an asset, the FBI's quiet voice inside a dangerous world. After 3 weeks, Anna was given a new identity. Her job on paper was now certified deaf interpreter, working with elderly clients. This would explain why she visited Senora Maria more often and stayed longer without anyone suspecting her. She was also assigned a handler, a female agent named Lucia Torres who pretended to be her cousin from out of town. Lucia stayed in a nearby motel and checked in with Anna every night. They communicated through a secure texting app with hidden code words. Anna now wore a necklace that could record conversations and a hairpin that sent signals when tapped a certain way. Every part of her life was now part of the mission. It was exciting and scary all at once. But she kept thinking about Diego and all the others like him. This was her way of making sure their stories didn't end without justice. The final part of her new role was simple on paper but difficult in real life: get closer to Senora Maria. Rachel gave her a clear mission: visit more often, help her around the house, offer to interpret documents, and slowly earn her full trust. Anna nodded. She could do that. She already had a real bond with the woman. The hard part would be knowing that everything she said or did might one day lead to the arrest of her only living son. As she prepared for her next shift at the cafe, Anna took one last look in the mirror. She didn't see a spy or a hero. She saw the same girl from foster care, the same girl who learned sign to help someone she loved. But now, her hands would speak for something bigger. They would tell a story that might finally bring the ghost out of hiding. The morning air was cool when Anna stood outside Senora Maria's house for the first time in her new role. She wasn't wearing her usual cafe apron. Today, she wore a soft gray sweater and had a small black bag over her shoulder. Inside the bag were a notepad, some vitamins, and a tiny recording device hidden in a pouch. She was no longer just a waitress. Now, she was working as a caregiver for the hearing impaired, a believable new identity given to her by the FBI. This job gave her a reason to visit the house often and stay for longer periods without raising questions. When the front door opened, Maria greeted her with a warm smile and signed, "Welcome, my dear." There was no hesitation, no suspicion. Anna was now inside. And from this moment on, every conversation, every movement, and every small detail could lead to something big. The house felt exactly as the agents had described it: plain, quiet, and far too simple for someone with a billionaire son. There were no family photos, no signs of wealth, and no technology except for an old radio that didn't work. But Maria seemed happy to have company. She signed about her aches, her routines, and the little things she needed help with. Anna helped fold laundry, made her tea, and checked the pantry. Everything felt normal on the surface, but Anna was trained to look beneath the surface now. She paid attention to how the woman moved, what she didn't say, and where her eyes lingered in conversation. Anna asked about her past, where she had lived, what her son was like as a boy. Maria smiled proudly and signed that Marco used to wear costumes around the house. He always liked pretending to be someone else, she signed. Even back then, he loved secrets. As the visits continued, Maria began to treat Anna like family. She asked her to help water plants, organize books, and even sort mail. It was during one of these quiet afternoons that Anna noticed something odd. While cleaning a small wooden shelf in the back hallway, she found a locked drawer. The key wasn't nearby, and Maria didn't mention it. Anna didn't ask. She just smiled, made a mental note, and continued wiping the dust. The next day, while putting groceries away, Anna found 2 envelopes tucked behind canned beans in the pantry. They were old and worn, stamped in Mexico, with no return address. She didn't open them, but she slid them into her memory. Later, in a kitchen drawer, she saw a small ring of unlabeled keys. No house key, no car key, just odd ones. Maria didn't explain. She simply said, "Old things," and changed the subject. The FBI had given Anna clear instructions: build trust, stay calm, and observe everything. So that's what she did. She never pushed, never pried. But every time she returned to the safe house for debriefing, She had something new to report. Rachel and Dominic listened closely. One afternoon, after Maria had dozed off in her chair, Anna began quietly exploring again. In the back of a drawer under some dish towels, she discovered something unexpected, a secret compartment. Inside it was a stack of foreign cash, pesos, euros, and American dollars. There were also postcards, each with bright pictures but no messages written on them. At first, they seemed meaningless. But when Anna looked closer, she noticed something strange. On the hands of the people in the photos, sign language symbols had been added, drawn in tiny ink strokes. They weren't random. They were messages, carefully hidden in plain sight. Back at the safe house, Anna spread the postcards on the table. Rachel used a magnifying glass while Anna translated the symbols. One said Window 7, another South Line, and a third simply said, Pack quiet, leave night. Dominic guessed they were instructions, possibly for cartel members. But Anna wasn't finished. Hidden in the envelope of the postcards was a small burner phone, old but still charged. It had no contact names, only numbers and short texts. One read, Clear coast after first drop, and another said, Visitor confirmed next cycle. Anna didn't recognize the sender. But one thing was now obvious. The house wasn't just a quiet hiding place for an old woman. It was a communication hub, carefully maintained with low-tech tools that no one would ever suspect. The postcards were Marco's way of speaking to his mother, and maybe to his network, without ever using a traceable word. As the days passed, Maria grew even more relaxed around Anna. She began telling stories, some sweet, some strange. One afternoon, while they sat folding towels, Maria signed about Marco's teenage years. She said he used to study faces in the mirror, practicing how to change his look. He could make himself look older, younger, sick, or strong. He loved masks, she signed. Not the party kind. The real kind. The kind that fools people. Anna listened, nodded, and smiled. But inside, she felt a chill. This wasn't just a protective mother. This was someone who had helped shape Marco's strange world. Maria then signed something else. He doesn't trust people. Never did. He even changes his walk when he thinks he's being followed. Anna asked, Does he still visit you? Maria smiled softly and nodded. Soon, she signed. He said he will come this season, when the birds return. That was it. That was the moment. Anna kept her face calm, but inside she felt her heart beat faster. She had just received the first real clue about Marco's return. The FBI had waited nearly 10 years for something like this. That night, she repeated Maria's exact signs to Rachel. This season, when the birds return. Dominic didn't need a calendar. He pointed to the data chart. Marco's past visits had always happened between late March and mid-April, just as spring migration began. It was almost time. The team immediately shifted into high alert. Satellite schedules were updated. Drone flight paths were set. Nearby roads were checked for surveillance. Extraction teams were told to prep gear and stay on standby. If Maria was telling the truth, and it seemed she was, Marco Alvarez would be stepping into U.S. soil again very soon. Anna's role became even more critical now. Her job wasn't just to watch Maria anymore. It was to stay close enough that when Marco appeared, she could be inside the house. She kept the visits warm and relaxed. She made soup. They listened to music. She helped Maria fix a squeaky cabinet. On one visit, Maria handed her a new postcard and said, "For your collection." Anna smiled, took it home, and found another hidden message in the image. A dog in the background had its paw shaped in a sign. April 11th, it said. That was the date. Anna circled it on her calendar. The countdown had begun. The morning of April 11th came without warning. The sky was pale gray, and the wind had a slight chill, as if nature itself knew something dangerous was coming. Anna arrived at Senora Maria's house with her usual soft smile and her brown bag of supplies. But today, she carried more than just vitamins and tea. Hidden inside her sleeve was a tiny voice recorder, and tucked into her pocket was a silent signal button she could press in case of danger. The house looked the same from the outside, quiet, small, harmless. But inside, something had changed. The air felt heavier. Maria's hands moved faster than usual when she signed, "He's here." Anna felt a chill run through her. She nodded slowly and stepped inside. In the living room, sitting by the window, was a man dressed like a Catholic priest, black robes, white collar, and a heavy wooden cross around his neck. At first glance, the man didn't look dangerous. He had a soft beard, tired eyes, and wore wire-rimmed glasses. His skin was a little darker than Maria's, and his smile, well, there wasn't one. He didn't stand up or offer a handshake. He just stared. Anna knew it had to be Marco Alvarez, the most wanted drug trafficker in North America. But he didn't look like a billionaire criminal. He looked like someone hiding from the world. His beard was fake. Anna could see the glue near the edges. His glasses were too large for his face, and his eyes, though brown, had that unnatural shine of colored contact lenses. Anna took a deep breath, smiled kindly, and signed, "It's nice to meet you." Maria reached over and touched Marco's hand. Then she signed, "This is my favorite girl. The only one I trust." Marco nodded once, but still, he said nothing. That first meeting lasted less than 15 minutes, but it felt like a full day to Anna. Marco didn't blink much. He didn't smile. He barely moved. He just sat there, watching her. His eyes followed every flick of her hand as she signed. Anna felt like she was being scanned by a machine. She remembered what Rachel had told her. Marco doesn't trust people. He tests them. Always. When Maria asked her to stay for dinner that night, Anna didn't hesitate. "Of course," she said. "I'd be happy to." She knew this would be her first real test. That evening, she returned to the house with fresh bread and some soup she'd prepared. They sat at the small table, Anna on one side, Maria on the other, and Marco at the head. The food was warm, but the room was cold. Then Marco spoke for the first time. His voice was soft but deep. He spoke Spanish, and Maria translated into signs. But Anna could still understand some of it, thanks to her lip-reading practice. He told a story about being 10 years old and playing hide-and-seek in a cornfield. He said he had hidden so well that no one found him for hours. When they finally did, he said, "My cousin was crying. I told him next time I'd teach him how to disappear too." Maria laughed softly. Anna smiled and signed, "Did your cousin learn?" Marco stared at her for a moment, then nodded. "He did," he said, "but he never beat me." It was a strange story, but Anna understood what it meant. He was testing her reaction, seeing if she feared his ability to vanish. She passed the test by not flinching. For the first time, Marco's face softened just a little. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Over the next 2 days, Anna stayed close. Maria was delighted to have her around, and Marco allowed it, though he never fully relaxed. Still, Anna used every second to gather evidence. She kept her recorder running quietly from the moment she stepped inside. On the second morning, she noticed Marco pulling out a USB stick from the lining of his shoe. He plugged it into an old laptop and opened a folder labeled Kitchen Inventory. But Anna saw the files inside: shipping routes, cargo names, and port codes. She couldn't copy them, but she memorized as much as she could. Later, she found a notebook on the coffee table with phone numbers and strange patterns, which she recognized from her training as encrypted dialing codes. Marco also made 2 phone calls that day. He didn't speak long, but Anna captured his voice on the recorder, a key piece the FBI desperately needed. That night, Marco asked Anna to come with him the next day. "I need someone who can sign," he said. "Someone my mother trusts." Maria looked pleased and signed, "Your family now." Anna's heart dropped for a second, but she smiled and nodded. "Of course," she said. The next day, they drove in a plain white van, no license plate on the front. They went far outside of town to a quiet warehouse on a dead-end road. Inside was a man waiting. He was tall, with slicked-back hair and a long scar down the left side of his face. Anna knew right away this was Gabriel Soto, Marco's top enforcer. The man who handled problems. The man who made people disappear. Anna's hands began to sweat. But she kept her face calm and stood quietly beside Marco. "This is the girl," Marco said. "She'll interpret for us. She's safe." Gabriel didn't speak at first. He just looked at her, his dark eyes sharp and unreadable. Then he smirked and said something in Spanish that Anna didn't understand. Marco replied simply, "She's here to work, not listen." Gabriel laughed a little, then looked Anna straight in the eyes and said, "What does fear taste like?" Anna didn't flinch. She remembered her training. Stay still, breathe slow, control your eyes. She signed calmly, "I'm just here to help. Nothing more." Gabriel grinned. Smart girl. The meeting lasted 20 minutes. They spoke in code, using names of birds and street names to describe shipments. Anna didn't try to translate. She just stood still and watched their hands. On the way back, Marco didn't speak. But when they arrived at the house, he said one word, "Useful." Anna knew she had passed another test. But now, Gabriel had seen her face. And Gabriel remembered faces. That night, Anna went back to the safe house to meet with Rachel and Dominic. She gave them the recorder, repeated the details about the USB stick, and described every part of the meeting with Gabriel. Rachel wrote quickly, and Dominic circled the date. "If Gabriel's here," he said, "then the next move is coming fast. We don't have much time." The FBI began prepping all teams. Drones were set to fly over the warehouse. Local police were told to stay clear. Extraction teams were moved within 5 miles of Maria's house. Anna's cover was still solid, but now Gabriel Soto was watching her, and that changed everything. They couldn't wait forever. Marco Alvarez was in the country. His enforcer had arrived. And Anna, a girl who just weeks ago was pouring coffee, was now the only person standing between a peaceful dinner and a possible ambush. Back at Maria's house, the atmosphere shifted. Marco had started making phone calls late at night. He sat outside on the back porch, speaking in soft Spanish into a burner phone. Anna couldn't hear the words, but she timed each call. They were always short, 2 minutes or less. On the third night, Anna saw Marco writing something on a piece of paper, folding it, and hiding it behind a loose panel in the kitchen wall. The next morning, it was gone. She didn't know who picked it up, but it meant something was moving. One evening, Maria asked Anna to stay and help make tamales. They laughed and worked together in the small kitchen. Marco watched from the hallway. For a moment, it felt almost normal, like a family. But Anna knew better. Behind every laugh, behind every smile, was a man who could vanish in seconds and leave destruction behind. As the days closed in, Anna started noticing signs of change. Maria became more nervous, checking the windows more often. Marco started carrying a small black case, which he kept close to his chest. Gabriel visited again, staying only 10 minutes, but left behind a sealed envelope. Anna didn't ask questions. She just cleaned dishes, swept the floor, and kept her ears open. Every night, she sent secret messages to Rachel through the secure app still in. One message read, "Package seen. Possible movement soon." Rachel responded with clear instructions. Stay calm. Eyes open. Extraction ready. Anna knew the time was coming. Marco was almost ready to leave again. If the FBI didn't move soon, they might lose him for another 10 years. She had done her part. Now it was up to the team to take the next step. The devil had walked through the door. It was time to shut it behind him. For the first time in days, the sun was bright over the village. Birds chirped and the wind was calm, but inside the Alvarez house, things were changing. Marco had started packing. One bag. One small suitcase with only a few clothes and a sealed pouch that never left his side. Anna noticed it first when she came in to help Maria with the morning tea. Marco stood near the window, speaking in low tones on his burner phone. He ended the call quickly when he saw her and nodded without a word. Maria signed, "He's leaving soon. A long trip." Anna smiled gently, but inside her nerves tightened. If Marco left now, the FBI might never find him again. The world was wide, and Marco knew how to disappear. Anna had a short window left to collect the last pieces. She knew every step counted now. There was no turning back. That same day, while dusting an old bookshelf in Maria's room, Anna spotted a flash drive tucked behind a stack of unused notebooks. It was old and dusty, marked only with a black permanent marker that said, Quito. She slipped it into her pocket quickly and continued dusting without a word. Later, at the safe house, she handed the drive over to Caleb Morano, the FBI's young tech operations lead. Caleb plugged it in, and the files began to load. His eyes widened. "This isn't just route info," he said. "This is the whole network." The USB contained a full digital map of the fentanyl shipping system, marked drop points, encrypted contacts, port schedules, coded routes across Mexico, the US, and even South America. Rachel Lynn stood behind him, arms crossed tightly. "This is it," she said. "It's enough to tear the entire operation down. We move now." The endgame had officially begun. With the files verified, Rachel reached out to every major agency connected to the case. She sent digital copies to DEA and Interpol teams across the globe. They began preparing for synchronized raids in over 30 cities. Shipping yards, warehouses, stash houses, and satellite operations, all were going to be hit within hours of each other. The clock was ticking. If anyone got wind of the takedown too soon, Marco might vanish again. So every step had to be careful. Back at Maria's house, Anna kept her routine steady. Same smile, same soft steps, same careful balance of trust. But inside, she felt like she was walking a tightrope above fire. One mistake now wouldn't just get her removed from the mission, it could get her killed. Still, she returned to the house every morning. Marco had no reason to doubt her. Or so she thought. Until Gabriel returned. And everything began to crack. Gabriel had always watched her with silent suspicion. He didn't trust easily, and now he was paying closer attention than ever. That afternoon, Anna sat at the table with Maria, helping her translate a recipe from Spanish to English. Marco was upstairs. Gabriel sat on the couch, watching silently. Suddenly, Gabriel spoke. "I thought you said you were left-handed," he said calmly. Anna froze for half a second. "Yes, I am," she answered. Gabriel nodded toward her hands. "Then why do you sign with your right hand?" Maria looked confused. Anna's heart skipped a beat. She scrambled for an answer. "My cousin taught me to sign." "She was right-handed," she said quickly. "It's just habit." Gabriel stood up slowly and walked to the table. He stared at her, eyes hard. "Be careful with your habits," he said. "They can tell stories you don't mean to share." Then he walked out the front door. That night, Anna sat quietly at the edge of her bed in the safe house, hand shaking. Dominic walked in and sat beside her. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "Barely," she whispered. Rachel walked in with an update. Marco's flight path was confirmed. He's heading south in 36 hours. If we don't act before then, he's gone. Anna looked up. "We're not ready yet," she said. Rachel shook her head. "We have enough. We can hit every warehouse and close every port. But we need to tag Marco now." Anna didn't hesitate. "I can do it," she said. "Tomorrow, when he finishes packing." Dominic looked worried. You sure you're up for this? Gabriel's watching you like a hawk. Anna looked straight at him. Then let's make him blink first. She was in too deep to stop now. One last mission. One last move. The end was near, and she would not break. The next morning, Anna returned to the house with a tray of baked sweetbread and tea. Maria smiled warmly, and Marco offered a polite nod. He had packed everything into one suitcase, now sitting by the door. Anna walked over, pretending to straighten the couch pillows nearby. With practiced ease, she slipped a tiny tracker into the lining of the suitcase while reaching for a dropped napkin. No one noticed. Not even Gabriel, who was now seated near the hallway, watching them all. Anna stayed for one more hour, laughing with Maria, signing slowly, and offering to help prepare dinner. At exactly 4:15 p.m., she kissed Maria's cheek and signed, "Be safe, always." Then she smiled at Marco and said, "Goodbye, father." Marco nodded once. "We'll meet again," he said. Anna walked to her car with steady steps, climbed inside, and pressed the silent button on her wrist. The final signal was sent. Back at FBI operations, the room lit up. Rachel read the incoming ping and pointed at the map. Tag confirmed. He's still here. Caleb synced the tracker with the satellite drone. "We'll know the second he crosses city lines," he said. Dominic looked around the room. "We bring him in before he reaches the airport." Rachel nodded. "Confirm all strike teams. Countdown starts now." All across the country, agents loaded gear, studied photos, and readied their takedown scripts. International teams waited for the green light. This wasn't just about catching Marco. It was about collapsing the entire empire, the factories, the routes, the payments, and every shadow he ever touched. The moment Anna planted that tracker, the walls began to close in. And for the first time in 10 years, the FBI had the ghost in their sights. Not just a rumor, not just a whisper. This time, they had Marco Alvarez. And they weren't letting go. But inside the Alvarez house, something felt off. Gabriel had been quiet all morning, walking slowly from room to room, glancing at windows, checking the gate. He didn't say anything to Marco, but Anna had seen that look before. He was searching. For what, she didn't know, but it didn't matter now. Her job was done. The bag was tagged. The network had been mapped. The agents were in position. Now, all they had to do was wait. She sat at the edge of the safe house couch, radio in hand, heartbeat slow and steady. Rachel came in and gave her a nod. "You did it," she said. Anna didn't speak. She just looked at the screen showing the tiny blinking on the map. Marco was still inside the village. But not for long. The storm was ready. And when it hit, it would sweep through the cartel like a fire. The sky was still dark when the first of the coordinated raids began. In 6 different countries, across different time zones, agents from the DEA, Interpol, and local task forces stormed warehouses, offices, and homes linked to the Alvarez cartel. In Mexico City, trucks loaded with fentanyl were stopped mid-shipment. In Colombia, a lab hidden behind a fruit market was torn apart. In Los Angeles, New York, and Miami, stash houses filled with cash and chemicals were raided all at once. Phones rang, doors slammed, and panic spread like wildfire among the cartel ranks. By the time the sun rose, over 40 arrests had been made. Every operation was built on the data Anna had uncovered, the USBs, the signs, the conversations. Operation Silent Echo had gone live, and the Ghost's house of cards was finally collapsing. But the biggest arrest of all hadn't happened yet. Marco Alvarez was still on the move. At 6:43 a.m., Marco's white SUV left the quiet village roads of New Mexico and began heading toward the Arizona border. He wasn't speeding. He wasn't running red lights. To the average person, it looked like a normal drive. Gabriel Soto sat in the passenger seat, checking a GPS app that wasn't really for directions. It was coded. The route they followed was supposed to lead to a hidden airstrip in Arizona. From there, Marco would disappear again. Anna had watched them drive off from a safe distance. The tracker she'd planted on the suitcase still pinged every 5 seconds. Rachel, Dominic, and the full tactical team followed in an unmarked SUV. The signal grew closer to the edge of Arizona. The team knew they had one shot to stop the vehicle before it hit open desert roads. That's where people vanish. That's where Marco had vanished before. Not this time. At mile marker 201 on Highway 80, 2 black FBI SUVs blocked the road. One behind, one in front. Marco's SUV slowed, but didn't stop right away. Inside the car, Gabriel reached for something in his jacket. The agents noticed. "Weapon drawn," one agent shouted. Within seconds, the quiet morning exploded. Gunfire rang out. Gabriel fired first, 2 sharp shots toward the nearest SUV. The agents ducked, returned fire, and glass shattered. Marco reached for the door, but more bullets cracked through the windshield. Gabriel opened his door and fired again. This time, an FBI sniper fired back, 1 clean shot. Gabriel dropped instantly. He was gone before he hit the ground. Marco froze. His hand raised in the air, but the car's engine was still running. Anna, watching from a support vehicle, screamed as the shots echoed. 1 bullet had pierced the back of her SUV. She ducked, hand shaking, heart pounding. The gunfire stopped. Agents stormed the vehicle. Marco didn't fight. He didn't yell or run. He simply raised both hands as they opened the door. His face was blank, calm, cold. The agents pulled him out, forced him to the ground, and cuffed his wrists tightly behind his back. The man who had built an empire from the shadows, the man known across the world as El Fantasma, was now on his knees in the dirt. For the first time in his life, he had been outplayed. Anna stepped out of the SUV, tears in her eyes. Marco turned his head slowly to look at her. His lips moved, and she watched him carefully. Then he spoke, just loud enough for her to hear. It was her. "My mother. She let you in." His eyes were sharp with anger, but also a strange sadness. Anna didn't reply. She just stood there, frozen. As the agents pulled him to his feet, Marco looked back toward the second support car. Inside it, behind the glass, sat Senora Maria, the woman who had raised him, the woman who had kept his secrets, the woman who, in the end, had helped bring him down. Their eyes met. She placed her hand on the window, then signed slowly and clearly, "No more ghosts." Marco didn't say another word. He just stared at her, lips tight, jaw set, as if he didn't believe what he was seeing. The agents led him away, placed him in the back of the van, and slammed the door. Operation Silent Echo had succeeded. After 10 long years, the man who haunted the FBI, DEA, and entire nations was in custody. The mission was over. But for Anna, the weight of it all came crashing down in a wave. Her knees gave out, and she collapsed. Paramedics rushed to her side. She wasn't injured, just exhausted. Her body had held together for weeks under pressure, danger, and fear. Now that it was over, everything let go. Rachel knelt beside her, gripping her hand. "You did it," she whispered. "It's over." Anna nodded slowly, eyes closing. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to cry. Not just for the danger she'd faced, but for Maria, for the innocent lives lost to fentanyl, and for the part of herself she had given up to make this happen. She had gone from a waitress pouring coffee to the only person who could stand in front of a monster and not flinch. And now that monster was caged. The ghost had fallen. The silence had ended. The world would never know the full story, but in that moment, under the Arizona sun, justice finally felt real. In the days that followed, news of Marco Alvarez's arrest spread across headlines around the world. El Fantasma captured, international drug lord arrested after decade in hiding. Photos showed him in handcuffs, surrounded by agents. No smile. No expression. Just defeat. The FBI released a public statement. Operation Silent Echo is a global success. Over 60 members of the Alvarez cartel were in custody. Fentanyl shipments had been stopped. Key labs were destroyed. The network had been broken. The ghost that haunted law enforcement had finally been caught. Anna declined interviews. She didn't want fame or praise. She returned to her small apartment, her regular life, and visited her cousin's grave. "We got him," she whispered. Rachel and Dominic both received promotions. Caleb was given a medal for digital excellence. And Maria, now under protection, lived in a quiet home far away, her hands finally still, her heart finally at peace. But Marco said one more thing before being flown out to a federal prison. In a quiet room, during a final debrief, he looked at Agent Rachel Lynn and said, "There's always another ghost. I was just the one you could see." Then he leaned back, silent. No more answers. No more signs. He would now face trial for crimes in 5 countries. His empire was gone. His name, once feared, now belonged to history. But his words stayed in Rachel's mind. Because he was right. Evil doesn't die in one raid. It changes. It waits. It finds new faces. But for now, this ghost was gone. And the people he hurt could finally breathe again.